My access was restored. My meeting invitations came back. The distribution lists reappeared in my inbox. But something had changed for me too. I started looking at job postings quietly, during lunch breaks, after hours. I found one 3 weeks later. Different company, better title, 20% salary increase. I applied on a Sunday evening. They called me Tuesday morning. I had 3 interviews over 2 weeks. They offered me the position on a Thursday afternoon. I accepted the same day. I drafted my resignation letter that evening. 2 weeks' notice. Professional. Courteous. No details about why I was leaving. I submitted it Friday morning. Siobhan called me into her office within an hour. She asked if there was anything they could do to change my mind. I said the decision was final. She asked if it was about the incident. I said it was about career growth. She said they'd be sorry to lose me. I said I appreciated my time there. My last 2 weeks were quiet. I documented my projects, handed off my responsibilities, trained my replacement. Declan stopped by my desk on my second to last day. He said he was sorry to see me go. He said if I ever wanted to come back, I should reach out. I thanked him. My last day was a Friday. I cleaned out my desk, packed my personal items, returned my access badge. I walked out at 4:30. The job I'd accepted was everything they'd promised. Better team, better leadership, better infrastructure. I never mentioned the incident in interviews. When people asked why I'd left my previous company, I said I was looking for new challenges. 6 months later, I ran into a former colleague at a conference. She told me Martin had left the company, resigned, quietly, no exit announcement. She said the infrastructure team had been restructured, new leadership, new priorities. She said they'd finally allocated budget for the capacity upgrades I'd recommended. I listened, nodded, didn't comment. I had my own systems to manage now. I was placed on a performance improvement plan for causing a system failure that cost the company €400,000. I'd sent 5 documented warnings about the infrastructure gaps 3 months before the crash. IT still had copies of every email. The failure happened on a Tuesday morning. The entire customer database went offline at 7:43 a.m. Orders couldn't process, support tickets couldn't log, sales calls couldn't access client records. By noon, leadership had scheduled an emergency meeting. By 3 p.m, my co-worker Martin had presented his findings to the executive team. He told them the failure was caused by unauthorized configuration changes to the production environment. He told them I'd made those changes without approval. He told them I'd ignored standard change management protocols. I found out Thursday afternoon when my manager called me into her office. Her name was Siobhan. She looked uncomfortable. She said there had been concerns raised about my technical judgment. She said the executive team had reviewed the incident report. She said they'd decided to place me on a 60-day performance improvement plan. I was Catherine Hayes, Systems Administrator. I'd been with the company for 3 years. I asked if I could see the incident report. Siobhan slid a folder across her desk. I opened it. Martin's name was on the first page. Author, Senior Systems Engineer. I read through it carefully. He'd documented the timeline, the configuration changes, the cascade failure. He'd included screenshots of the audit logs showing my username. What he hadn't included was context. The configuration changes weren't unauthorized, they were part of a critical security patch I'd requested approval for 6 weeks earlier. The approval had come from Martin himself. I had the email thread saved. I closed the folder. I didn't say anything yet. Siobhan asked if I understood the seriousness of the situation. I said I did. She handed me the performance improvement plan, already printed, already dated. I took it back to my desk. I didn't sign it. I opened my email archive instead. I searched for Martin Infrastructure Approval. 47 results. I filtered by date, January through March, the 3 months before the crash. 13 emails. I opened the first one. January 23rd. Subject, Security Patch Request, Production Database. I'd outlined the vulnerability, explained the risk, requested approval to implement the patch during the next maintenance window. Martin had responded the same day. Approved. Schedule for February maintenance window. I opened the second email. February 9th. Subject, Maintenance window confirmation. I'd confirmed the scheduled changes, listed each configuration update, included the technical specifications. Martin had replied. Confirmed. Proceed as planned. I kept reading. February 27th, March 6th, March 15th. Every email followed the same pattern. I requested, Martin approved. The last email was dated March 21st, 5 days before the crash. Subject, Infrastructure capacity warning, urgent. Body text, Martin, per our discussion last week, I'm documenting my concerns about current database capacity. We're running at 87% utilisation during peak hours. Industry standard recommends staying below 70% to ensure stability. I've attached projected growth data. Based on current trends, we'll hit critical capacity within 6 to 8 weeks. I recommend we allocate budget for additional server capacity, implement database optimization protocols, schedule infrastructure review with leadership. Without these measures, we risk system instability and potential failure. Please advise on next steps. Catherine. Martin's response came 2 days later. Catherine, thanks for flagging this. I'll review with the team and get back to you. In the meantime, continue with routine maintenance as scheduled. He never got back to me. I saved all 13 emails to a separate folder, created a backup on my personal drive. Then I opened the incident report again. Martin's timeline showed the configuration changes happening at 7:21 a.m. on the day of the crash. My audit logs confirmed it. My username, the exact timestamp. What the report didn't mention was that I'd followed the approved maintenance schedule. What it didn't mention was that the system failed because it couldn't handle the load, not because the configuration was wrong. What it didn't mention was that I'd warned him this would happen. I closed the report. I didn't email Martin. I didn't email Siobhan. I worked through the rest of the afternoon, responded to tickets, monitored system performance, documented everything. At 5:30, I went home. The next morning, I arrived at 8. The office felt different, quieter. People looked at me, then looked away. I sat at my desk, opened my email. 3 new tickets assigned to me. Standard requests, password resets, access permissions. I worked through them methodically. At 10, Siobhan stopped by. She asked if I'd had time to review the performance improvement plan. I said I had. She asked if I had questions. I said I needed clarification on the allegations in the incident report. She looked uncomfortable again. She said the report spoke for itself. I said I'd like to understand which specific actions were considered unauthorized. She said Martin had documented everything clearly. I asked if there would be an opportunity to provide my perspective. She said the performance plan included weekly check-ins where we could discuss my progress. I thanked her. She walked away. I pulled up the company's HR policies, found the section on performance management. Section 7.3. Employees placed on performance improvement plans have the right to submit a written response within 5 business days of receiving the plan. Section 7.4. Written responses will be added to the employee's file and reviewed by the HR department. I opened a new document. I didn't write it yet. I outlined it instead. Point 1. Timeline of approved maintenance activities. Point 2. Documentation of infrastructure warnings. Point 3. Request for technical review of incident findings. I saved the outline, went back to work. 3 days passed. No one mentioned the performance plan again. Martin avoided me. He used to stop by my desk twice a day. Now he walked past without acknowledgement. I kept working, kept documenting, kept saving emails. On Monday, I finalised my written response. 4 pages. Factual, chronological, precise. I attached copies of the 13 emails with Martin. I attached my capacity warning from March 21st. I attached the approved maintenance schedule. I didn't accuse anyone of anything. I didn't defend myself emotionally. I simply presented the documentation and requested a technical review of the incident by someone outside the infrastructure team. I submitted it to HR at 3 p.m. I received an automated acknowledgement. Your response has been logged. HR will review within 10 business days. I went back to work. That week, I noticed new changes. I was removed from the infrastructure planning meetings. They'd been weekly. My calendar now showed them as declined. I was removed from the senior systems distribution list, the one where architecture decisions were discussed. My access to the production change management system was downgraded. I could still submit requests, but I couldn't approve them anymore. No one told me these changes were happening. I just noticed them. I documented each one. Date, time, what changed. I didn't complain. I kept working through my tickets, kept monitoring the systems, kept my head down. 10 business days passed. On the 11th day, I received an email from HR. The sender was Aoife Murphy, HR business partner. Subject: Follow-up meeting request. Body text: Catherine, thank you for your written response regarding your performance improvement plan. I've completed my initial review and would like to schedule a meeting to discuss next steps. Are you available Thursday at 2 p.m? Please confirm. Aoife. I confirmed. Thursday at 2, I walked to the HR office on the 3rd floor. Aoife's office was small, clean desk, 2 chairs. She greeted me professionally, asked me to sit. She opened a folder. My written response was on top. She said she'd reviewed my submission carefully. She said she'd also reviewed the incident report. She said there appeared to be some discrepancies. She asked if I'd kept copies of the emails I'd referenced. I said I had. She asked if I could provide them. I said I'd already attached them to my written response. She checked, found them. Printed copies were in the folder. She read through them silently. Then she asked if anyone else had copies of these emails. I said they were sent through the company system. IT would have backups. She made a note. She asked if I'd discussed the infrastructure capacity concerns with anyone besides Martin. I said I'd mentioned it in a team meeting, March 18th, 3 days before I sent the final warning email. She asked who was present at that meeting. I listed 5 names: Martin, 2 other systems engineers, 1 network administrator, 1 database administrator. She made notes. She asked if meeting minutes were kept. I said Martin usually documented action items in a shared folder. She asked for the location. I gave her the file path. She wrote it down. Then she thanked me for my time. She said she'd continue her review and would reach out with next steps. The meeting lasted 28 minutes. I walked back to my desk. I didn't hear from Aoife for a week. During that week, I completed my performance plan check-ins with Siobhan. 2 sessions, 15 minutes each. Siobhan asked about my progress on the improvement goals. I walked through my ticket completion rates, my response times, my documentation quality. Everything met or exceeded standard metrics. Siobhan acknowledged this. But she said the plan was about demonstrating improved judgment, not just technical execution. I asked what specific judgment improvements she was looking for. She said she'd know it when she saw it. The same non-answer Diane had given Nicole. But I didn't mention that. I just nodded, took notes, went back to work. On Friday afternoon, I received another email from Aoife. Subject: follow-up meeting, Monday, 10 a.m. No body text, just the subject line and a calendar invitation. The attendee list showed 3 people: me, Aoife, someone named Declan O'Brien. I looked up Declan in the company directory, Chief Information Officer. I accepted the invitation. The weekend was long. Monday morning I arrived at 9:30. At 10 I walked to the executive conference room on the 4th floor. Aoife was already there. So was Declan. Declan was in his 50s, grey hair, sharp suit. He stood when I entered, shook my hand, asked me to sit. Aoife started. She said HR had completed an investigation into the incident report and my written response. She said they'd reviewed all documentation, emails, meeting minutes, system logs. She said they'd also conducted interviews with other members of the infrastructure team. She said their findings raised concerns about the accuracy of the incident report. Declan spoke next. He said he'd personally reviewed the technical details. He said the system failure was caused by capacity constraints, not configuration errors. He said the configuration changes I'd implemented were appropriate and properly approved. He said my warnings about infrastructure capacity had been documented and escalated appropriately. He said those warnings had not been acted upon by management. He looked at me directly. He asked if I'd experienced any retaliation or changes in work conditions since the incident. I described the facts: removed from meetings, removed from distribution lists, access downgraded. He made notes. Aoife asked if I'd been given explanations for these changes. I said no. Declan asked if I wanted to continue working on the infrastructure team. I said I'd need to consider that. He said that was reasonable. Aoife said the performance improvement plan would be withdrawn immediately. She said a corrected incident report would be issued. She said my access and meeting invitations would be restored. Declan said he'd be addressing the matter with the infrastructure management team separately. He asked if I had any questions. I asked if the corrected incident report would be shared with the executive team who'd seen the original. He said it would. I asked if there would be a formal acknowledgement that the original findings were inaccurate. He said yes. A memo would be issued within 48 hours. I thanked them both. The meeting ended at 10:37. I walked back to my desk. My hands were steady. My breathing was normal. But something had shifted. 2 days later, the memo arrived. It was sent company-wide, all staff. Subject: Incident Report Correction, March 26th, System Failure. The body text was brief. Following a thorough technical review, the incident report dated March 27th regarding the production database failure has been withdrawn and replaced with corrected findings. The failure was caused by infrastructure capacity constraints, not by configuration errors. Systems Administrator Catherine Hayes followed all approved procedures and had previously escalated capacity concerns to management. The updated report is available in the Shared Incident Repository. Declan O'Brien, CIO. I read it twice. My email started filling with messages, teammates expressing surprise, colleagues saying they'd always thought I was thorough, people I barely knew offering support. I responded politely to each one, thanked them, kept it brief. Martin sent nothing. 3 days after the memo, Martin's calendar changed. His one-on-ones with direct reports were cancelled. His standing meetings were declined. A week later, his name disappeared from the senior engineering team roster. No announcement, no explanation. I heard through a colleague that he'd been moved to a different division, same title, different responsibilities, no direct reports. Siobhan stopped by my desk that Friday. She said she wanted to apologise for the way the situation had been handled. I said I appreciated that. She said my performance had never actually been in question. I didn't respond to that. She said if I wanted to discuss my career path or any concerns, her door was open. I thanked her. She left. I went back to work.